So now that we've had an opportunity to kind of experiment with our environment and our scripts for the marble game, I want to start talking about a couple of assets that will help push our environment more in the direction of a game. And the first thing that we're going to take a look at are these this menu assets. Now, I've downloaded the menu.zip file. I've downloaded that to my desktop and I've unzipped it, and I'm going to implement this. And what this will allow us to do is build some simple buttons that show up on screen, and we can have a loading scene that will give us the opportunity to play the game. We could possibly quit or get some simple instructions on how to play the game. So I'll implement a basic play button, and then from there we can expand on this and add some different kinds of scenes like instructions and any other cutscenes that we might want. So I've downloaded the menu.zip file. I've unloaded that, or I've unzipped that into a menu folder. And if I just look inside the menu folder, there's a couple of different assets in here. There's a Photoshop document, and that's simply a play button with two different states. And I've saved that Photoshop document out as two separate PNGs. There's a play off and a play on, and the difference is that there's just two different versions of the color of the play button. Inside Photoshop, this was created, this play button was created just it's just some simple type. There's two different versions of the type. It has two different fill colors, and it has a layer effect, which is a stroke that's been applied to it, just to kind of emphasize the button. So again, just two different states saved out as two separate PNGs. And in addition to that, there's also a menu button .javascript file or JS file. We'll use this for the basic functionality of the script. Now, getting the script to work is pretty straightforward, but it'll take a little bit of setup inside Unity. So I'm going to jump back into Unity. And at this point, I have just my simple level 01. This is just the sandbox level that I've been playing with. And as a reminder, when I hit the play button, I have a basic marble inside the scene. Currently, my camera is not attached to the marble, but I can control it and push it around using that marble 4 script. Now, what I want to do is, let's assume that this is level 1 and this is the first level of our game. I want to create some kind of a loading screen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to borrow this scene and I'm going to save this out as the same, as a different version of the same scene. I'll do a quick file, save as, and I'll call this scene, I currently have level 1, and maybe I'll call this loading. So this will be the loading screen, and I'll hit save. So I now have two scenes inside my project. I have a loading scene and a level 1 scene. You can see that I'm working inside the loading scene. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just shrink my window down a little bit here. I'm going to make sure that my assets folder is selected, and I'm going to drag the menu folder directly into my assets folder. Now, I'm going to jump inside my menu screen. I'm going to ignore the Photoshop document. Now you'll notice that when we looked at the content, there's a play.psd. That's the only Photoshop document, and it's simply called play. When we look at these assets through the Unity interface, it drops the extension. And in fact, Unity likes Photoshop documents and can use Photoshop documents, but I kept that in there as a resource, so that if I want to repurpose this button, if I want to change it or modify it, I have that existing asset. So I'm just going to ignore that. And I'm going to focus on the play off button. And with that button selected, just one click, what I'm going to do is go to Game Objects. I'm going to create Other. And I'm going to set this up as a GUI texture. Now, once I set that up as a GUI texture, when I hit the play button, you'll see that I now have this play off button that's sitting in the middle of my screen. Now again, the whole process to get that established is that we have to have the image selected. With that image selected, we can go to Object, Create Other, and then choose that as a GUI texture. Once I've assigned that, you'll see that in the hierarchy, we have now this play off GUI texture. It's not previewing until we hit the play button, because that's a texture that's rendered in the camera view. Okay, so I'll turn that back off. If I select the camera, you can see that it's not rendering yet. It renders at the start of our simulation. So when I hit play, the play button pops up. Okay. If I select the play off and I look at the inspector panel, you'll see that I have some basic controls here. I can adjust the X and the Y position of the play button. Now when I hit play, you'll see that that play is in a different position. I'll toggle that off and I'll set this back to its default, which in this case was, I believe it was -64. And I'll hit the play button, give that a quick test. There it goes. So it's back to its original position. Now, once I get that play off button established, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the MenuButton.js, the JavaScript, and I'm going to drag and drop it onto the play button object. Once I do that, there's a couple of things that I need to consider here. When I look at the menu button script, there's a level to load field. We'll get back to that in just a minute. And there's a normal texture and a rollover texture. And so this is identifying two different states of the texture. And for the normal texture, I'm going to use the off state of the button. So I'm going to drag and drop. In the normal texture, I'm going to drag and drop play off. And in the rollover state of the texture, I'm going to drag and drop play on. Now, if I test this and I hit play, the button doesn't do anything, but right now when I roll over it, it changes its state. And that's good. You'll also notice that there's a beep, and we can drag an audio clip into that so that we can, when we roll over the GUI texture, it triggers an audio event. And that's just a matter of creating a sounds folder, dragging the asset in, and attaching it here. Now the level to load, this is the thing that gets loaded, the level that gets loaded when we actually hit the play button. Now we're currently in the loading level. So if I hit the play button, I'm looking at the loading screen. Okay, and there's not a whole lot happening except that my ball drops here. When I click on this, I actually want to go to a different scene. And the scene that I want to load, I'll just go back to my assets, is called level 01. So with my play off selected, I'm going to go level load. I'm going to click in this field here and I'm going to type in the name of the level that I want to load. In this case, it's level 01. I'll hit return to apply that. And now when I hit the play button, and actually let me jump back out because I'm going to go to level 01. I'll save the loading level that I'm working on. Now I have level 01 loaded and I want to make just a real simple difference. I'm just going to get rid of these reference objects so that when I change levels, it should be easy to identify because there won't be any content. If I look at the loading scene, I have these simple cubes in the environment. When I look at level 1, they're gone. So I should know if I switch the scene. Now if I hit the play button, I'm in the wrong scene. Let me double click on the loading scene again. There we go. I'll hit play. When I roll over and I hit the play button, nothing's happening. There's one more step that we need to take, and that is that we actually need to go into the build settings and tell the application to load all the different levels and which level to load first. So I'm going to choose File, Build Settings, and from the Build Settings menu, what I want to do is I want to drag in these levels to load inside the build. So it says Scenes in the Build. There's nothing in this, and so by default, it's loading whatever scene we have active. So when we test the simulation, when we run it, we're looking at whatever current scene we have. So what we need to do is we need to drag the scenes into the scene build that we want to load. In this case, I definitely want to load loading, and there's an order to this. I want loading to load first, and then I want level 01 to load. If I want to switch these around, I can drag these in order, and it's just a linear order, so whichever scene comes first, that loads first. And now if I build this, or simply if I just close that, and now when I test this scene, when I hit the play button, and now when I click play, it actually takes me to, from the loading scene to the level 1 scene. So that's the basic setup to get a menu. I'll go back and refine this menu a little bit later, but I want to push forward and talk about some other components of Unity. I want to start to talk about textures, and building some simple assets in the level to give it a little bit of a gameplay factor. So that's how you modify and implement the menu scripts and the menu assets. So make sure that as you're building up your game, that you include a menu screen, and you can have things like play the game. You could have a quit button. Maybe you want a simple instructions screen. And we'll come back and refine that screen a little bit more in later presentations. But we'll push on and talk a little bit about bringing in additional models and textures, and we'll do that in the next presentation.